Hola a todas y bienvenidas al podcast de Women Who Code nuevamente después de tanto tiempo, después de esta pausa administrativa. Aquí estamos de vuelta ahora con más entrevistas, con paneles de discusión, con cápsulas informativas, tenemos mucho contenido para ustedes. Antes de empezar les recuerdo rápidamente, Women Who Code es una organización con sede en San Francisco y con presencia en más de 60 ciudades en el mundo, que tiene como objetivo ayudar a que las mujeres sobresalgan en carreras de tecnología y a que más mujeres se unan a la industria de la tecnología. Yo soy su host, Pamela Rodríguez, y les recuerdo que también pueden enviarnos sus comentarios, sugerencias o preguntas a nuestras redes sociales, Twitter, Facebook e Instagram, con el usuario www.codmty, o nos pueden seguir en YouTube, SoundCloud y Spotify para escuchar los nuevos episodios de este programa. Aclaro antes de iniciar, en específico el día de hoy no tenemos el formato usual del programa, porque la persona que tenemos de invitada hoy habla solamente inglés. En audio no tenemos esas capacidades, pero en YouTube van a tener acceso a la versión subtitulada de este capítulo. Y bueno, la razón de este cambio de formato es porque hoy tengo como invitada a una amiga mía llamada Maren Vernon. Tuve el gusto de conocerla cuando estuve trabajando para una empresa de clases de programación en línea llamada Skill Crush. Fue una de mis mejores experiencias en un trabajo, por no decir la mejor, porque es una empresa que en su mayoría está constituida por mujeres, lo cual es extraño en estas empresas de tecnología. Un poco acerca de Maren, ella es una desarrolladora web y una instructora de programación que está basada en Oregon, Estados Unidos. Ella ha tomado como su misión no solamente dar clases de programación, sino también ayudar a que el panorama de la industria de la tecnología se vuelva cada vez más diverso y más inclusivo. Y bueno, yo ya hablé mucho, porque no mejor vamos directo a la entrevista. Thank you for being with us today, Maren. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, really a pleasure to be here.
So I think we can start to just listen to you talk about a little bit about your background and what brought you to the technology industry.
Okay, so my journey is maybe a little less traditional in that I never actually took any computer science classes in any of the grades, including when I went off to college. I got a computer in my home when I was fairly young because my dad was a high school teacher. And so in elementary school, I was able to have one kind of over the summer when he was practicing learning how to use it. And we got to sort of putter around on the paint programs. And that was really fun and exciting. But it was a small town. There wasn't really a technology department there at the time. And so really the computer offerings were pretty minimal. And also as a woman, as a girl at the time, it didn't strike me as something that was open to me or that was maybe accessible to me. And so even when I got to college, I didn't really think about taking a computer class. I mean, I took typing. I learned how to use Excel. I did basic stuff, but I didn't think about the code underneath. And I got my BA in English, and I moved to New York and started working for a publishing company. And that kind of fit right in with what had always appealed to me. But one of the interesting things that I found when I was working for the publishing company is these instances would come up where things wouldn't work. Part of my job was tracking book projects. And so we needed a tracking system at some point. Like we were trying to do it on paper. It was becoming untenable. And so we needed this tracking system. And the guy who was developing it for us, bless his heart, he was battling with a lot of different projects. And so it wasn't always moving as quickly as I'd hoped. And so I actually was able to insert myself in and first kind of suggest help with some of the design aspects. And then, I was kind of curious what it looked like under the hood. So I said, hey, can I jump in here and look under the hood? And so I got to start writing some code. I was a FileMaker database. And so I was able to write some queries and do some code to make things sort of automatically populate based on dates. And it was fun. It was an interesting challenge. Then I got married and I got pregnant. And I started to think about, well, I don't want to have to be coming into the office all the time. I don't want to have to be tied to this desk. I don't want to have to deal with the commute. We had a young kid with probably zero chance of getting into a daycare based on how late we plan things. And so I needed to be home. And so I needed something remote. And because I'd had so much fun working this FileMaker database, I started querying women in coding. And there were a lot of articles that had come out at the time talking about how this was an emerging career for women. offering a lot of flexibility. And so I stumbled across a group, Skill Crush, who was just starting out. They were offering just some classes on HTML and CSS to build websites. And so I took one and I got hooked. And, I told this to the founder later because it was such a small group of people at first. I actually had access to talking to the founder. And one of the things I said to her was, as a new mom, I felt like a lot of things were out of my control at the moment, from feeding to napping to other things. But when I was able to get in and craft this website and make it work the way that I was instructing it, right? I would give it an instruction, it would follow, unlike my baby. It was really, it helped my self-esteem. It was a lot of fun. And it was, cool to be able to put my website up online, right? When I bought my first domain and I got it up online, it was not the prettiest thing. It was quite horrendous when I look back on it. I still have it up because I like to show it to my students sometimes to show, how you can grow, right? But it was just so empowering and so exciting. And so that was when I kind of got the bug, right? I got hooked, and it also allowed me that freedom to be able to do work from home. A couple years in, I left my part-time job at the publishing house. I've been able to sort of keep remote working on the database, but it was starting to be not fulfilling enough, and I wanted to try web development. And so I was able to go freelance and work from home. And as it turned out, we moved multiple times over the course of a couple of years, and I could just take my career and my work with me because it was mobile. And so the freedom that that working in technology gave me to work the hours, random hours if I needed to, and the problem solving, mysteries, and just the empowerment to be able to sort of see something. I mean, it's not a physical product. I wasn't having it in my hands, but it was still a tangible thing that I could see results on. And so that got me hooked. That got me, forever into tech.
Yeah, I think it's
long
amazing.
journey there, but
it's especially amazing right now because so much depends on your job being remote, not only because of motherhood, but just the situation, right? And the fact that technology can offer remote jobs is amazing, just even for now, for anyone. And
yeah, I mean, who knew I was prepping for COVID all these years?
I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, it is funny, when so many people started working from home and everybody was, trying to figure out Zoom technology, including my own husband, figure out Zoom technology and searching for external monitors, which were on high demand and all these other things. And I realized I was set, I woke up the next day and nothing was different.
You were ready.
Except everybody was home. Yeah.
So you mentioned you started slowly getting into the technology industry. I imagine that there are some technologies that you enjoy the most, or you work the most in your either freelancing or teaching. Could you talk about the technologies that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, since HTML and CSS was sort of my first entree into this, it's something that I still love. Now I transitioned to do WordPress websites, which introduced me to PHP. And so, that was, again, learning a new language and having some new challenges, but it also introduced me to this ability to sort of, to use conditional statements, right? To be able to have things that could operate based on certain conditions. If the client entered something, or if they went to a certain page, make something happen, automate a lot of these tasks that were kind of arduous to do on my original HTML and CSS only site. And so that was fun to kind of stretch my wings there. And then, I started to teach myself Python, which actually my dress right now is Python code. I'm totally nerded out today in my, I've got my Python dress. I've got my Ada Lovelace punch card necklace. I've got my binary bracelet. I've even got my binary tattoos. So
you always have the best outfits for
I'm totally nerded today. I dressed up just for you, but yeah, I got into Python. And then for kids, one of the reasons I'd started to look at Python was because I was looking at my kids and thinking about how I might be able to pass some of this onto them. And Python, I've been told was approachable. But then I also discovered Scratch, which is a visual programming language. There's my little Scratch cat. And so I use that with kids, right, as a way to sort of get them interested in coding it, but at a level where even if they're not fluent readers and writers yet, which at least one of my children is not yet, it's a way to sort of drag and drop these coding blocks and create these algorithms. And so it's really accessible, and they can make these visually interesting projects, which really draws them in. And so that's fun. You know, I also find that kids sometimes need a lot of different entry points. Like I was never a gamer. So, you know, learning to code in order to create games was not something that necessarily appealed to me, because it was not something that I grew up, you know, with I didn't grow up with video games, but you know, some kids, that's their thing, or, you know, some kids it's robots. And so like I have my little Botley robot that we use with the first graders. And so, you know, it's a robot you can give very simple commands to, right? And then they can create something. And then, you know, I have my little, robots that run on microbits, for, you know, getting a little bit more advanced, or, you know, we have the Sphero robots, or, you know, Lego Mindstorms. And so I love that there's a variety of ways that you can use different languages. You know, all these sometimes use slightly different languages. Some of them are visual languages that you can then see translated into other languages. Like, for instance, this guy, when I go on, I can code it in a visual programming language, but then see what it looks like in JavaScript. Or, you know, you can translate some coding blocks into Python. And so it's cool to understand the connection between languages and find some similarities. And then, you know, just be able to get it in an approachable way, but then have it grow with you as you age up and can get more complex. And so I hope that answered the question, but
you answered like 3 questions.
Yeah, you can't see all my office right now. I'm in this room that's been converted into a partial also learning space for one of my children now that we're in COVID. But I just have like robots and just various pieces everywhere. And it's hard to get my kids to keep out of all my stuff until I play with it myself. But, you know, I find that when I'm working with kids, I mean, even sometimes the youngest ones, you know, that aren't ready for maybe something like Scratch because they don't have the dexterity or they're not quite there yet. I mean, I love that there are even books, you know, that exist. Like, this is a really cute book series that I love, or, you know, here's a graphic novel series that's fun. And so I love that there's offline, you know, options to teach kids some of these concepts and to get them sort of interested in this as an area before they even get to the hardware and the software.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's all about sort of also making it fun, right? Gamifying it. And so little robots where they can see the results of their work, or like here I do a little like a conditional card game, or like a Simon Says conditional if else game. You know, you don't need to be online for, right, which sometimes can be tricky, to have access to internet and get online. You know, or it's just a different entry point, a different way of sort of getting them to have these skills. And it really throws them off sometimes when I come into the classroom and they're like, yay, the coding teacher's here. Like, where are the computers? And I'm like, we're not using computers today. And they're like, that makes no sense. We're like, we're gonna play this card game. You know, we're gonna use this little robot. And you know, we're gonna learn about binary code. And so I think that a lot of times when people think about tech, it can feel really intimidating at first, right? Like, even when I was looking at it, I think one of the really nice things about the fact that at the time Skill Crush that I was involved in only was teaching HTML and CSS. It was, you know, it was approachable. It was a group of women that I was learning from, and I didn't have 7 million thrown at me or 7 million different options to learn to code thrown at me and then try to have to parse which one was the best one. There was like, here's this one thing that we're teaching right now, you know, jump in, give it a try. And and just then sort of being able to bite things off a little bit at a time. And over time, I, try new languages and I don't really love that, or, that's uninteresting to me. And so you can sort of poke around and find your love. But I think sometimes when the whole kitchen sink is thrown at you, you sort of don't know where to start and you get sort of frozen. And so I like to sort of start small with just like one or two things and then work my way up from there.
Yeah, and I think it's so, like, I keep following your projects and how much you get your own kids involved in robotics and various fun projects that you've been posting online. And I always thought that we didn't really grow up with attached to a computer like kids do right now. So it's so valuable for kids to learn how to code, even if they are not going to be coders necessarily in the future. I don't know if you've had the need to discuss this with parents, for example, that they may have some concerns or not necessarily be as involved, right?
Right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how those conversations evolve post lockdown, right? Post quarantine, post COVID. Even if your kid doesn't grow up to be a programmer or a coder, there's other skills involved that you're really practicing. So when I talk about into the classroom to teach coding, what I'm really focusing on is critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, and computational thinking. That ability to take a big problem and break it down really, you're taking this big sort of intense problem and you're breaking it down into the individual components and trying to figure out really clear step-by-step instructions about how you do this. And you're thinking about even things like conditional statements, right? If, then, looping, how can I find some patterns and learn how to automate these tasks? Again, something that a coder will do, but something that you will do just in the course of life, right? How can I make this easier on myself? Heaven knows right now, we just all need ways to make things easier on ourselves. So how can I automate some of this, right? How can I find a pattern and make this work? And so, coding is an amazing skill to use. Even if you just know a little bit, a little bit of HTML and CSS knowledge, for instance, might help you on your marketing job when you have to quickly, fix something on the website, or, just understanding a little bit about writing a piece of code if you just need to tweak something, in a program that's, or if you need to search for something in a database, or just even that little bit of knowledge can really get you a long way, or even just help you have conversations with the people whose jobs it is to write the code, right? If you can speak in a language that the web developer you're working with or the programmer you're working with understands, you can have a more productive conversation. So whether you do that as your full-time job, or it's a side hustle, or it's just something that you use occasionally to sort of help you facilitate conversations or, make tweaks, these skills are really valuable for anybody. And then just the broader skills of being able to break these projects down into small steps, being able to work with a team, being able to iterate on your work. There's another thing, right, that we coders do. We'll create a program. It's never going to be perfect the first time. I mean, I'm trying to think if I've ever had anything work right the first time. And so you find the mistakes, right? You debug, you find the errors, you iterate on that, you create better and better versions, and you're learning from that. And these are all key concepts that we employ in programming and coding, and they broaden out to be helpful regardless in your life. I have to have that belief inside of myself, right, that I can get smarter, I can, learn from working with others and continuing to try, finding effective strategies and different approaches. And so that growth mindset piece too comes in really helpful as a coder when you're trying to learn all these new languages and problem solve, but also just as a human being, so I think once I explain that to parents, they're always like, oh yeah, go for it. Like, that makes sense. Like, I thought you were just showing my kid how to move a robot around on a board. Like, now I get it. I tease them, right? I send the kids home with little assignments like, okay, try to write an algorithm for your parents about, how to get ready for the morning, and have them try it out. You can't eat breakfast if you haven't gotten out of bed yet. And just really making the kids think about what they're doing. But I think, especially too right now with these kids being stuck at home and needing a sense of routine, or needing some control over their days. I find even with my kids, like if I can give them these little challenges, little, code your day challenges, right? Like it gives them that sense of being able to accomplish something and sort of work through a problem and break it down. And then I find that just pays dividends when we get to something with homework. So yeah, I think that coding careers will definitely be a huge part of our future. And I think people in this lockdown are recognizing that this could be a really valuable career path, but we don't expect everybody to want to pursue that. And so if you can just understand the key concepts, that'll help you regardless.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll help you not only build logic, but like you said, I think there's a lot of misconceptions that coding makes you antisocial. And I think nowadays it's the complete opposite, because you need to be a part of a team. You need to communicate with designers. You need to communicate with so many people to just implement one thing. So it's just a lot of misconceptions, I think, that we have been trying to debunk throughout the years.
Yes. You can't know everything about everything, right? I definitely have a lot of room to grow in terms of learning about accessibility for websites, or learning about site security, right? I'm not a hacking expert. I am not maybe the best copywriter, or maybe I don't have the tools or the capacity or the interest to design logos. These are all sort of careers that are connected to programming and coding, say, websites. But I can't be all the things. And so, yeah, I learned to work with a team and being able to communicate and manage your time and be respectful of other people's time, and learning technology, like, how to video conference, how to set up sort of virtual, chore boards or what have you. Again, all of a sudden people are realizing the value of the tools that many of us who've worked in this have been using for a while. But I found that while I often, can spend hours just sort of by myself in my head trying to work, I often need to have a group to be able to reach out to, right? If I can't search and find the answer on the internet, or maybe that's not even the best solution, right? Like if I have a subject matter expert I can call on, versus having to just sort of randomly search for quality material, maybe that gets me to the solution faster. And so, so I think that it's one of those careers that has been portrayed a certain way in popular media, maybe. Very male, very solitary, I think when we can expose and sort of open the doors to have people realize that it's not for just a certain class of people, a certain, gender, a certain race, a certain ability, right? We definitely need people in the handy-capable community to be a part of this. We need people, different socioeconomic classes and different races to be a part of this, because so much of the technology that we're developing has to be used by such a myriad of folks that we need a myriad of folks to help us make it, so we make sure that it works for everybody, right? And so you can't be a loner. If you want to make a product that works for a wide subset of people, you need to have user tests, and you need to talk to people that use it a different way, because maybe they use it a way you didn't expect. And it's going to make you retool everything.
Mentality.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't open yourself up to criticism or feedback, or, if you're just siloed, you could miss a whole big opportunity or a whole big group of people that you could be serving.
I think you already answered most of the questions I was going to ask. But I just wanted to ask you, as a closing statement, what would you say to parents that want to start to teach coding to their kids themselves?
I would say one of the really great things is that there are a lot of tools that exist out there that cost, little to no money, right? And so I think sometimes, you see fancy things advertised, be it like the robots that I was showing earlier, or, these fancy coding school programs where, you pay and go and have somebody teach you. And those are all excellent opportunities. I'm not throwing those under the bus by any means, but they're maybe not accessible to everyone, right? Especially right now, a lot of us are struggling, financially. And so we need to be really mindful of that. And so I think one of the things that you can do is, start with something as simple as, a book, that talks about some of the concepts and maybe sort of gets their brains thinking about how these things work, right? You could check these out from your local library. Hopefully your school library might have copies, so it could be, free and easy to access. You can do something like Scratch. The Scratch program is free. You can even download the program and you don't have to have access to the internet. So if you are in an area that is, has spotty internet, like mine is apparently doing today, or internet's expensive, data is expensive, you can download it and use it for free without having to have internet access. So there are lots of opportunities to get your hands on this technology without having to pay a ton of money out of the gate. And, there are even people who publish free guides online. There are free videos online. I mean, on my website, I put up 4 videos for early coders and 4 videos for Scratch coders. And I tried to make it so that all the things that you're using are things that you might have in your house, or, there's virtual versions. So if you don't have the Botley robot in your house, there's a virtual Botley that I made, via Scratch that you can use. And so there's lots of opportunities, right? One thing I really want to do is make it as accessible as possible to as many kids as possible. And I think there are a lot of people out there, and that's their goal right now. And so there's a lot of ways to sort of dip your toe in, and, places like Scratch, places like Microbit, which is what this little thing is. They have lots of tutorials online. And so even as a parent, if you're not technology savvy, you can, find these really easy to watch programs that you can, watch with your kids. Or, if you don't have the time, maybe you just, send them off to watch them on their own. Just try a variety of things, right? If Scratch, if using that program doesn't grab you, try using Python, or using a robot, or try just writing an algorithm for your morning. Try dipping your toe in it, because I found that, I haven't loved everything that I've tried, right? And some things have been really intimidating. And then when I came back to them 2 years later, maybe now they were more accessible to me, or maybe they were less intimidating. So have that growth mindset, right? If it doesn't hit the first time, don't give up, right? There's this little acronym. I have it as a sticker on my computer. It's like FAIL, and it's the first attempt in learning. I think is the acronym. Yes, first attempt in learning. And so I like to think of it that way, right? Like, just because something doesn't go right the first time doesn't mean give up. It's too hard. I'm never going to get this, right? One thing I think as a parent is I need to model for my kids what I'm also trying to help them learn and do, right? So when I approach a new technology, if I get frustrated right away and walk away, and give up, what kind of lesson does that send to my kids, right? Google Classroom was frustrating when we started to learn it this past year, when we were getting into our digital classrooms, or, we couldn't get, somebody couldn't get a Zoom link to work, or, you work through these things and you model that for your kids. And one big thing I think that's even more important for starting off as a parent or as a teacher, for kids learning to code, is digital literacy, right? Digital and digital citizenship. I think if you do nothing else at the moment besides teach your kids digital citizenship, that's a huge piece of this. Teaching kids how to source good information online, how to be constructive, online and not be divisive, how to, be a good community member. And there are lots of programs that allow you to do that. from the Scratch community to Google has a Interland game that you can play to learn digital citizenship tools. And I think that in today's current political climate, but also just with COVID and misinformation and all these things swirling around, I think we've really figured out that digital competency is important, but also just digital citizenship is a really important tool. And so maybe you start there, right? And if your kids are playing the Google Interland game and having fun, learning about digital citizenship, maybe they want to code their own. And so you move to Scratch and they learn how to code their own little digital citizenship quiz, and so you sort of build and take it from there. And so I guess I would say to parents, like, even if you've never tried coding yourself, it can be very accessible, with a lot of these tools. And it's one of those things where if you keep in mind sort of the bigger goals of helping your kid figure out a growth mindset, how to break big tasks down, those computational thinking skills, how to collaborate and iterate. If you keep that in mind as sort of the big ideals, the specific technology that they might learn to use is maybe irrelevant. It's more about sort of what gets you to those bigger ideals. And so whatever sort of catches their eye, encourage it, foster it. And I think it'll pay dividends for them as they become adults.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Maren.
Yeah,
this was really interesting.
Clearly I haven't got to talk to many people outside of my home because I just go on and on and on. But
I think we're all the same right now. Like,
I've been talking to this duck way too much, right? Like the rubber ducky debugging. I'm all over the house, and that's all I talk to. It's a fun thing to teach kids how to code, because I think when you can see that spark, it gives that warm fuzzy feeling, and it kind of re-inspires you to keep going with your own coding journey. I mean, I think when I watch kids learn how to code, not only are they getting hopefully something from me, but I'm getting something from them, right? Like you said, and we were talking about working with others, seeing things from a new perspective. Kids will sometimes ask me these questions. They're like, I hadn't thought of that, right? Like, mind blowing. Like, I hadn't thought to approach it that way, or I hadn't, thought of that problem, or they'll do something weird. And I'm like, how did you even do that? And then we get to break it down and explore it, right? And so I get something out of it too, right? I'm challenged. I'm growing and learning at the same time that I'm able to sort of impart some knowledge, hopefully, on them. And so it's just, it's satisfying. And I love doing it digitally, online works, but I kind of can't wait to get back in the classroom too sometimes and get hands-on. And there's something about just sort of working intimately in a small space, and being able to sort of see that in the moment is just so fun. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed for getting back into everything.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Maren.
Of course.
Espero que se les haya hecho interesante la plática del día de hoy. Para todas aquellas que estén interesadas en consultar más información sobre lo que estuvo mencionando Maren, les dejo la liga en la descripción de su sitio web para que puedan ver sus videos y todo lo que ella tiene que decirnos. Sin más por el momento me despido, les recuerdo que pueden contactarnos por nuestras redes sociales, Twitter, Facebook e Instagram, con el usuario www.codmty, o seguirnos en YouTube, SoundCloud y Spotify para ver más episodios de este programa. Nos vemos en la siguiente edición. Hasta entonces.